it really is. What we're interested in understanding is how in your world, in your specialism, how have you seen Christmases past? How have we progressed with knowledge, treatment, the approach generally to balance disorders or patients with balance problems? Maybe Peter, if we start with you.
Of course, thank you very much. So I just got back in time. If you wondered why I didn't join at 10 to 1, I'd been out on a long cycle this morning and I dived in the shower and I got in with about 30 seconds to go. So nice to see everyone on the, all my friends down the side. Hello everyone, and patients and so on. Good to see you all. And we haven't, Kevin's asked us not to prepare anything today. So this is just really said from the heart or on the hoof, as it were. And Kevin, do you want me to go through past, present, future in one go? Or
no, Peter, please, let's just, all we're doing with this first section, we're just going to talk about what major improvements you've witnessed in recent years in either treatment or the approach to balance conditions or even the approach to balance disorder sufferers.
Well, I think timeline is a really useful thing to understanding what we can do for people with balance disorders and what we can't do. And so if we look at a couple of the really, 2 or 3 of the really common conditions very quickly. So if we look at BPPV, benign positional paroxysmal vertigo, which I know a lot of people have got, 1 to 2% of the population have got, and it's that horrid, intense spinning when you lie down or roll over and look up. Well, the diagnostic test for it, the Hall-Pikes test, was first described in about 1952, so not so long ago. The Brandt-Darraf exercises, those ones where you lie side to side, was first described only in 1980. So not that long ago, actually, almost, just before I went to medical school. And the Epley maneuver, rolling side to side, was described around the same time. And the Simont maneuver, where you get throw you to one side and throw to the other, was described in 1988, so halfway through my time at medical school. So actually, these things for the treatment of BPPV are very much recent and very much in our lifetime. And where we're going forward with that now is over the last 20 years, for about the 1 in 200 people who've not been able to manage with particle repositioning maneuvers, we have surgery for it. And the going forward bit here is, rather than just thinking of it as a physical condition with rocks in your ear, to think of it also as a biological condition like osteoporosis. So it's weakening of those tiny bones, calcium bones in your ear, and using medicines like vitamin D. So maybe there'll be some drugs to treat BPPV. And also, if we look at vestibular physiotherapy, which Andrew's talking about, the Cooksey and Cawthorne, you remember the Cooksey-Cawthorne exercises, the base exercises that so many people do for chronic imbalance, were first described in 1944, a little bit before most of our time. And Andrew and Michaela can offer really specialist and more dedicated treatments. But what we're going to do in the future, I think, is use more artificial intelligence-led services. So chatbots, for example, and you'll look at someone of your liking with an accent you like on the computer who can show you the speed of head movement and can engage with you at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up distressed. And we know from US war veterans that for psychological therapies, post-traumatic stress disorder, they actually prefer talking to a chatbot than talking to a human. So that's another way we're going forward with medicine. Andrew and I are working together on artificial intelligence diagnostics. And this is a huge, huge project. You may have heard of a company called Babylon, which has gone from nothing 7 years ago to being worth $2 billion now. It's just raised $550 million to invest in artificial intelligence-led diagnostics in general. We're not involved with that, but we're looking at very, very clever ways of diagnosing on the internet. So maybe there'll be easier access to diagnosis. And then there are drugs, for example, for Meniere's disease, where we've gone from big surgeries. When I started as a consultant here 16 years ago, endolymphatic sac surgery, then we went through gentamicin, which is a fabulous treatment for Meniere's, but can lead to hearing loss. Now we're using intratympanic steroids, which are incredibly successful, average 90% reduction in vertigo attacks, but can be pretty sore. And we're trialing a different type of injection that you only need 1 injection, and we're waiting for the results of this, where a gel stays in the ear And we're looking, I'm also leading on the 100,000 genome project, see if we can find a genetic cause for some causes of Meniere's. We might be able to find drugs that work on that. So you can see there's an evolution over the decades, over my career span, and over a couple of sort of generations of career spans, where the understanding and treatment of all these conditions has changed beyond all recognition. And we have really good treatments now. And then the final one I talk about very briefly is triple PD, persistent postural perceptual dizziness. And we've just received a $2 million grant from NIH in the States to study this. And also for vestibular migraine, and this is a little advert, and we're looking for patients with vestibular migraine who live within Leicestershire. And I want to recruit you into our study. And what we'll do is when you have an attack, we'll get the university ambulance to come to your house, bring you to the university, and we're going to do, even if it's 3 in the morning, and we want to do electrode recordings, EEG, brain scan recordings. It's not sore at all, just put a hat on, to see where in the brain the vestibular migraine is occurring. So this is incredibly exciting, incredibly cutting edge. And if anyone has really bad vestibular migraine attacks, if you could just let me know. I mean, just either let Kevin know or go through one of the websites and find me and just email me, and I'll put you in touch with my team. So, and we're hoping then to be able to find drugs and other treatments and really understand the basic science of a lot of these conditions. So there you are. There is my life in 3 minutes.
Thanks, Peter. Andrew Clements, if we could ask you the same question now, please.
Yes, Andrew, that means your time's up already, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's dinner time now. So yes, I suppose looking back in the past, then the centre's evolved, and what we try and do is all very patient focused, and I suppose a lot of what I do now does boil down to a lot of counselling, because it's dealing with symptoms, because vestibular problems create symptoms, and two people can have the same diagnosis or sort of underlying problem, and they get symptoms which are different. Some people will feel worse in enclosed spaces, and then with the same problem another person will feel a lot worse in completely open spaces. So it's sort of looking at sort of progressing treatment plans and trying to find exercise programs to prepare people to get back to close to normal functionality as possible. And I suppose that's what rehab has been about, and that's how it's evolving, that it's always trying to move from what's challenging and what's difficult, progressing to what's easy and normal, because we take so much for granted when everything's working normally, and it doesn't take much to go wrong with a small element within the vestibular system to create quite amazingly bad symptoms for people. And then it's understanding those symptoms. It's trying to get, what I try and do is get patients to understand the symptoms and why they're happening, and how something simply involving their ear can create such a range of bad symptoms, and then find a series of, if I say, exercises or movements to try and improve things. So, and that's just continual evolvement of that. I learned lots from what patients tell me, and if people tell me new descriptors of symptoms, I jot them down, because I put them into presentations I give, because if one person says they feel that, because people have a lot of trouble putting their symptoms into words a lot of times, someone else will have that. And so the more I can give examples of what other people have said, at least you then know people are understanding what you're trying to talk about. And then it's convincing you to try to do exercises to retune it. But you do have to understand the underlying problem. And if it's Meniere's or migraine, it's actually sometimes those problems have to be stabilized first. So it's knowing when you can use exercise and when you can't use exercise, or changing the exercises.
Good. Andrew, thank you very much. Michaela, over to you now, especially quite interested in your views about anxiety and how that's been recognised over the years.
Oh, I think we've come a huge way from certainly when I first started in balance quite some time ago. I mean, the psychological element, I think, used to be completely discounted. It was a physical condition, and therefore it should be treated purely as a physical condition, without appreciating the emotional response that these kinds of things are bound to have. And I'm really pleased that we can now introduce a lot more into the counselling element and the support that we can give, and all the new techniques and tools that we can help provide. I think with a lot of, I've just seen Andrew's put his mask on, I think a lot of conditions have changed a huge amount in how they've been treated. I mean, just thinking of migraine, I remember when I was a teenager, my GP telling me that the only way that they could suggest for me to get on top of my headaches was to try chewing on feverfew, which I don't know if any of you have tried it. It's vile. It's the most bitter, nasty thing that does absolutely nothing other than give you a vile taste in the mouth. It did not help with the headaches at all. So the new medications that are available, the new treatments, and I'm dying to find out what the next 20 years brings us with treatment for migraine and for balance. I think there's huge array of things that we can do. And yeah, it's really wonderful to see at the moment the interest in mental health and the importance of it, and actually appreciating that mental health plays a part, and a big part, in physical health and vice versa. So I think there's a lot more appreciation, I think, as well, in people's understanding of the variations in balance problems. The GPs, I know, are an awful lot better now at appreciating and recognising the differences, hopefully, often, between BPPV and something where, I mean, I remember quite a long time ago, we used to see an awful lot of people that have had BPPV for 20, 30, 40 years that they've not had treated, because at some point the GP has told them that the reason that they were dizzy when they looked up was because they were cutting off the blood supply to the brain. So they don't look up. And it was a nice, simple BPPV that we can treat very easily. And I can't remember the last time that we've seen that in clinic. I don't know if you've got that description still, Peter, but yeah, we've come ever such a long way in, I think, a very short space of time. And it's very exciting to see what will come in all sorts of different parts in the dealing with the mental health, and the, as Peter says, about the artificial intelligence, and looking at different ways that can be applied both to physical imbalance and the emotional side of things. Does that cover the full past, present and future?
You're on mute, Kevin.
Sorry. There you go. Thanks, Ruth.
I only did the past. I didn't go into the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Future's next, Michaela. So we'll do more of that in the next segment. Well, sorry, the third segment. And then finally, Professor Hugill, who is, as a patient, may have lots of observations of what you've seen change over the years, Andrew. So what are your comments on how things have changed over the years?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm not a medical person at all. I'm a patient, so I'm coming at this from a slightly different perspective of my colleagues here. And also, I'd just draw your attention to my virtual background, which is the garden on Looe Island. I don't know whether people are familiar with Looe in Cornwall, but about a mile offshore there's an island. And this is the only flat piece of ground on the island. So if you walk around the island, you're always on a slope. And I sometimes feel like with balance disorders that you're just trying to find that flat piece of ground where everything's stable, you know. So that seems to be the quest for people like me. In terms of looking back, the way I've approached this exercise, and I thought, well, I'll think of something good and something bad in each segment. So looking at the past, I think the bad thing is my grandfather had Meniere's disease, and he basically had no treatment at all. So, I mean, there was no help for him. My mother used to describe coming home and finding him lying in the hallway, vomiting, and, you know, what we would recognize as having rotational vertigo. and really there was nothing that could be done for him. And I only found out about this after he died, so I didn't even know he'd had Meniere's disease. It was only when I got it and my mother said, well, actually, your grandfather had the same. And I just think of the people back then and what they had to go through, you know, and that makes me think that things have improved, because here I am feeling relatively stable and able to hold down a career and all that, thanks to modern treatments and modern understanding. So I think it's improved a lot. And with Meniere's, obviously, you know, we know now that it's a multifactorial condition. It's not simply one thing, whereas I think that back then it was viewed as a single thing. So that was the bad memory. And then the good thing I remember, and we caught a glimpse of this during the lockdown, was that the world was a lot quieter then. There was less bustle, there was less hassle, less pressure, you know, less stress, dare I say. I think there was stress, of course, perhaps a different kind of stress. But I just during the lockdown, I don't know about anybody. I mean, my hearing is shot. You know, I basically, it's terrible. But I suddenly heard insects again, and realised that I was hearing something that I hadn't heard since I was a child, because the traffic had stopped. You know, so now the traffic sound was no longer masking the sound of insects. And that reminded me of what it was like in the past, that the world was quieter, and there seemed to be more time, I think, for people. And I think a lot of the anxieties and things are compounded by the busyness of the modern world. So my thought about the past is that it was a more tranquil place. Maybe that's a fantasy, but I can remember it when I was a child, being quieter, you know. I can remember boredom. I mean, I think boredom was tremendously important. I mean, kids aren't bored anymore, you know. Being bored is like the worst thing in the world, you know. I quite like boredom. It was quite good to sit and watch a raindrop go down a window pane for hours on end, you know. And I think that's helpful if you've got a balance disorder, because it gives you time and space. You don't feel obligated and pressured all the time. So there you are. That's my happy memory from the past.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Andrew. We're going to leave the panel for a few minutes now. We're going into the once a year, the much coveted, very rare, Life on the Level annual awards called the Dizzies. And it's only the second year they've been given. Andrew Hugill, by the way, was a recipient in year one. And that apparently has done so much for his career.
It's a treasured possession. Yeah.
So I'm going to try now, very difficult, I'm going to try and juggle this to share a screen which will announce the category and then announce the winner. And all I'm asking to do when we announce the winner, if you can unmute and just give a short round of applause. I know one or two, the noise may be an issue, and be ready to turn it down. But I just want you to show your appreciation to any Dizzy winners. But with unmuting, you mustn't make any other noise other than cheer and clap when we announce the winner. So I don't know, I can't see the control to unmute you all, so you'll have to try and do it yourselves for me, please. So I'm going to share screen now, but you've got to be very quiet other than the applause. So hopefully you can all see. Can you all see the Dizzy Awards? RuPaul, can you see it?
Yep, yeah, I can see it.
You can see it. That's great. So a little bit like the Oscars, we've got the intro music. Super, that's enough of that. Now, the first category is outstanding contribution to the support group and its members. And it's been very difficult because there's been quite a few people this could go to, but I'm really pleased to announce that the winner is in this category for this year, Professor Peter Rea. This is where you...
Thank you.
Well done, Peter. A quick acceptance speech from you, Peter, please.
Well, my family and friends and everyone who knows me. Thank you. That's very kind. That's very kind, Kevin. Thank you. And I've really enjoyed being part of this group. And I tell you what, it's as everyone's been speaking, I've been running up and down all the pictures of all of you sitting at home with John, Sandra, Catherine, Richard, Sue, Nigel, Nicola. I won't go through everyone, but you're all there. And I know lots of you, and it actually makes me feel quite emotional. Maria, Maria down at the bottom, see you as well. Hi. It's so lovely seeing you all, and thank you.
Thank you, Peter. You've done so much work. What people don't see behind the scenes is all the time spent preparing, and we even shot a video for the Vida webinar. So thank you very much. By the way, just a little surprise for you. We have Life on the Level Christmas elves. And Peter, if you hear your doorbell ring, it is for you. And you'll need to go and answer your door, or someone else will. And should an award come your way, we'd like to see it on the screen.
May I just say, you're making me very, very nervous now.
So now, without further ado, quickly on to the next award. So hopefully you can all see the award category. This is Outstanding Contribution to Operation and Success of Our Group Meetings, which I have to remind everyone, it may look easy, but there's quite a bit of work that goes on making these things happen. And then there's a special skill to actually delivering a good meeting on the day, none of which is anything to do with me. And the winner for this year of Contribution to Operation and Success is Rupal.
Rupal, yeah.
Fixed. It's fixed. Fixed.
Acceptance speech, Rupal, please.
Yeah, totally fixed. As you can see, I'm doing a grand job today. I've completely fallen apart, and I even private messaged Kevin going, I don't know what I'm doing. You take control. So I can't, for previous ones, perhaps, thank you very much. But today, yeah, I'm all over the place, but I really appreciate it. And I'm really, really appreciative of the group, because it's been a massive support to all of us, and it wouldn't work without each and every one of you being part of it and being supportive. And can I just also apologise briefly for anyone that might have emailed me, tried to contact me. If I haven't replied, I'm really, really sorry. I promise I will get back to you. I promise.
Super. Thanks, Rupal. I say thanks so much. Bringing your professionalism to this has just been brilliant. It helps people tell their stories and helps people understand them, so it's really good. Oh, and by the way, Rupal, your doorbell might be ringing any moment, so if it does, go and collect whatever is there. Okay, next award. Apologies.
Can I interrupt, Kevin?
Oh yes, sorry. Let me stop
I've just had
sharing.
an
Go
elf
ahead.
arrive at the front door. So thank you very much indeed from all the elves and Father Christmas.
Yes. Oh, do look in the bag, Peter, because you will see there is an actual Dizzy in the bag. You'll have to unwrap it. You'll have to unwrap it. We'll. It should be there.
Thank you very much.
Chocolates are balanced chocolates, by the way.
Oh, look. Oh. Okay, now you've got to have a look at this guy. If you haven't.
And I think we'll.
Yes.
You got it.
This is a fantastic idea. I was never a sporting hero, so I don't have trophies on my shelf.
And there we go.
Hey.
Turn my thing off so you can see it, everyone.
Right, on to, I've got to move on to quickly the next award. Remember, everyone, to be as quiet as you can, unless we're applauding, or we'll pick you up. So the next category is the same as the first category we had, because I said it was so
on a
difficult.
Zoom thing. Zoom.
Whoever's talking, you mustn't. The same award category that Peter won. It was so
I'm afraid
difficult.
your Christmas greetings will not arrive in France.
Ella, I'm going to mute you.
Ella, can you mute? Ah, there we go.
Ella's been muted. It's same category as Peter. It was very difficult, and they're both as deserving as each other. And this award goes to Andrew Clements. Well done, Andrew. And just a word from you, please, Andrew.
Well, thank you. Yes, I didn't expect that. Just try and be normal all the time, and try and treat people as I think, you know, I'd like to be treated if I had a problem that people didn't understand. I think knowledge, understanding helps you deal with the problem. It doesn't fix the problems, but understanding what's going on and someone understanding your symptoms with empathy. Because, you know, I don't want to experience a Meniere's attack, and I don't want to experience a vestibular migraine, or even BPPV. So there might be someone at the door now because my dog's barking.
There might be an elf there, Andrew. So
you go and look.
Yeah, you go and look.
Whilst he goes and has a look, can I say thank you? Because an elf's been at my door, and I'm going to have to unwrap this, but I'll show you what else I've received. Thank you so much. This is really, really sweet. Oh gosh. And it's there you go. There's a proper award, but and an amazing of flowers. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Well done. Well done. Right, now the last award for this first part. Let me just share screen with you. Special award for expert guest speaker. And this goes every year to someone who, again, very difficult because, as you know, all our speakers are so good. But this goes to someone who sort of goes above and beyond everything we could ever expect. And the winner this year is Michaela Burton. Well done, Michaela. If I just explain, it was Michaela not doing one but two wonderful presentations, and also on the subject that's been so relevant this year about anxiety and how to try and cope with it. And Michaela, a speech from you, because your doorbell is also going to ring any minute. So quick acceptance speech from you.
Thank you. It's very, very kind of you. This kind of support group is such an important part of helping people with their imbalance and the difficulties that they have. I've always been very hesitant to point people in the direction of big groups, because it's very easy for the groups to start getting sort of distracted with the how awful everything is and just sharing the unpleasantness. But it's such an honour to be part of this group that's so supportive and so positive and does such good for everybody involved. So I'm really proud to be part of all of this. It makes me emotional.
Thanks, Michaela. Thanks for all the members for.
Oh, and there's an elf
this year. Go to your elf. Right, that's the end of the awards part one. There will be part two shortly. Well done, Andrew. Good. Super job. Now, what we're going to do, Rupal, are you good to do the second part of the panel now, where we're looking at Christmas present?
I think I am.
That's good. Now,
I think I've woken up slightly. Yeah,
we've got the adrenaline going with the elf visiting. So it's really over to you, Rupal, for the second segment.
Fabulous card as well. I'm going to take photographs of all these and post them up later, I think. So you were on to...
Sorry, I just tell everyone my co-presenters had no idea about the delivery elves today. So it's been a surprise for everyone.
Yes.
Fantastic elf.
So sorry, Rupal, over to you now.
I was going to say the timing is impeccable as well. They obviously know exactly when to knock on the door, which is fantastic.
Uncanny.
So we've talked a little bit about the past. Let's talk a little bit about the present with the panel. And what has been the worst effect of COVID in your specialist sort of areas? But out of that, what has been the unexpected positive for you? Shall we start with Michaela?
What, so I'm still being distracted by my little trophy.
So the worst effect of COVID from your perspective, particularly with sort of anxiety and stress, but out of that, what has been the most positive?
I think the biggest on the negative side is obviously the lack of being able to access the service as normal, and the impact that's having on the backlog of appointments for everything from tests to new appointments and consultations and everything. That's a big negative that we're working very, very hard to try and address and keep on top of. I think the isolation for a lot of people, again, is a big negative for a lot of people. And it seems, from what I've seen, to be the biggest impact with people with BPPV than a lot of the other conditions, with it being such an acute thing that we can treat relatively simply when we can get you in, because we've not been able to, or hadn't been able to, get people in. It's been very, I think, difficult for people when they've had an episode of BPPV that they've not been able to come in to see us for. On the positive side of things, I think a lot of people have been able to enjoy having that space that lockdown gave them, that not having people expecting them to come to work, to socialise and to leave the house when they really didn't feel up to it, and not have to justify to people why they're not wanting to go out. I think the enforced slowing down and quietening, as Professor Hugill very put very well there, that I think has been an absolute revelation to a lot of us, even without any medical difficulties that we have with balance. I think being able to take that step back from normal life and having that break and that opportunity to reevaluate, actually, am I living the way that suits me and that I want, has been a very good positive, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Michaela. Andrew, as a patient, you did talk very much about that, didn't you? Previously, saying it's been really nice to kind of slow down and actually hear the wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at COVID from my personal point of view, it's all good. You know, I can't honestly say it's been a bad thing. It's been great. My difficulty with it comes when I look beyond myself and look out at the world. So for me personally, I mean, I love social distancing. I've been practicing for it all my life. And I love the fact that people get out of the way when I come towards them. That's really great. I love the fact that I don't have to go into supermarkets. I love the fact that I can set up a routine every day and can live by that routine. I love the fact that I don't have to travel an hour there and an hour back every day to go to work. There are so many good things, it's hard to know where to stop. I mean, the only slight downside has been, obviously, universities have had to change their way of teaching, and this has been quite challenging, you know, and it's involved basically double the amount of work because I've had to redo everything for online delivery and rethink it all. So that's been quite hard work, but I mean, hard work's hard work, isn't it? You get on with it. Yeah. So personally speaking, it's fine. It's when I look out beyond myself that the difficulties arise, you know, because I just see suffering and unhappiness and difficulties, and that is anxiety inducing and sad, really. But I mean, that's the sort of general state of the nation, I think, and probably the world, is this kind of sense of anxiety and uncertainty. Which seems to be coming to an end, you know, in the not too distant future, we hope. And I suppose my only thought about that is when they say return to normal, everybody keeps talking about going back to normal. I hope that we can keep the things that we've learned from the pandemic period and make the most of those, you know, particularly what I was saying about the natural world, you know, and how, and be a bit more balanced with it, you know, because I feel we're imbalanced with the natural world. And perhaps slow down. It would be good if things slowed down a bit, generally speaking, if you know what I mean.
Good point. Just a really quick show of hands. How many people agree with Andrew in terms of being able to slow down and not having the same sort of pressure? Just a real quick show of hands would just be interesting. Apart from the sort of the anxiety, but actually not having the same sort of pressures.
Wow.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you know, it often strikes me what's good for people like me, it turns out to be good for everybody, you know. So, you know, whether it's a balance disorder or in my case as well, autistic spectrum, you know, the things that actually make life more tolerable for me turn out to make life more tolerable for everybody, you know.
Andrew, yeah, absolutely.
Like
Thanks.
We've just proved that because everybody seems to agree with this idea of slowing down and having more space and more balance. Yeah. And the balance is a good word, isn't it, in this context?
Absolutely. Andrew, thank you.
It's your personal balance, but it's also a sense of living in balance with the natural world.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Let's go to Andrew Clements.
Well, see, through this whole period, I mean, I've been to work every single day, and my clinic list has been just as full as it normally is. So most of it has been on the telephone, which a lot of people have actually found easier, which is quite good, because once you've seen someone and they understand what they're doing, it can be done on the phone or a video system, so which is quite good. I was doing that even before the COVID situation, because like with Peter Rea, we see people from all over the country. So video and phone appointments, you know, have always been the norm for me. So I'm used to doing that. I found, like Andrew has said, that quite a lot of patients have actually been comfortable because they're not out exposed to the environments. The only catch is when it does come to an end, if they have to go back into that, they have to start preparing for that. Otherwise, it will be a huge shock to the system. But sometimes things have changed, and there is people working from home and change how they're doing things. I've seen some negatives as well. I have actually had quite a few patients who've either had COVID themselves or family members and have been quite ill with it. They've got some quite long-lasting effects afterwards, like a post-viral fatigue, which is quite nasty. It does make it much harder to rehab someone when they've got that element, because you've got to be very careful not to over-provoke that element, because it seems to have a long-lasting effect if you do make them feel worse. So I'm learning that way. And unfortunately, I've also had a few people that have had people that have died in their family. So, and then in my other clinic I work in, because I work in haematology as well, some of my direct patients have died from COVID problems. So I've seen, you know, the bad side of it. A lot of my elderly patients, and I'm talking, say, in their 80s, who are fit 80-year-olds, have lost their normal fitness because they haven't been going out. Whereas a lot of us got out and enjoyed the nice weather, going for walks, and it was really nice. A lot of older people shielded themselves. So in fact, they lost their fitness. So I've got a lot of elderly people whose balance problem isn't worse, but they just can't do what they used to do, because they used to be able to walk half a mile to a mile, and they haven't done that for 6 to 8 months. And now they have trouble walking 100 meters, not because of a balance problem, just because they've lost their fitness. And it's much harder to get an older person fit again. So they're changes that I've found. But it'll be interesting. We just have to try and work through as things open up, because a lot of my patients have been happy that they haven't had to travel on a bus. They see that as good. But now, you know, when things start returning to normal, the roads, I've noticed, are much busier anyway. And if the buses are only half packed, are there going to be twice as many buses on the roads, or are they going to start cramming people in? I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I have seen more negatives than positives because of the overall health situation. But But what Andrew said was correct. I've had lots of people tell me that, but it depends if you've got to get back to a normal situation afterwards. It could be a shock to the system. If you don't, it's different.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Don't forget, if you've got questions that you'd perhaps like to put to the panel afterwards, please put them in the chat box, and then Kelly is keeping an eye on those, and we'll try and get to your questions as soon as we can. Peter, same question to you from your perspective. I know you kind of talked about it in previous talks during this year, the worst effect of COVID from your point of view and the most unexpected positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there were three lovely answers from Michaela, Andrew and Andrew, really deep and good answers. For me, in February, I became president of our national association, and I thought that I was going to spend my 2 years choosing the vintage of the wine that was going to be drunk at the annual dinner, and it hasn't worked out like that. It's been a really, really tough year on writing politics, writing guidelines that have been used all around the world, and being in touch with the Ministers for Health and NHS England and so on. So the big thing for me was that at the end of March, NHS England said that we had to stop all balance testing and all face-to-face appointments for patients with dizziness. And we worked very, very hard with the audiology community and the scientists, which was a positive without doubt, and we've come together there. And by May, we were allowed to start assessing children again, but it wasn't until July, August, 4 months later, that we were allowed to start testing in the NHS again for balance patients. And since then, we've only been allowed to see half the number of patients we previously were in clinic, so just a very few people come through. And it means the waiting times are about, they're 33 weeks at the moment for outpatient appointments and 94 weeks for surgery. So that's been the real downside of what's going on. And the impact on our patients is self-evident. The benefit has been articulated by everyone else, and that's the increase in virtual consultations. And like Andrew, I've done virtual consultations for many years. I tend to do them with my overseas patients, whether it's, I've done Perth in Australia, lots of people throughout Europe, America, Middle East, lots of people, Bangladesh, or everywhere. And they're actually really successful. We've not done them much in the UK, but I've been doing a lot of virtual consultations by phone and video. And we've also, with my colleague Louisa Murden, who's an audiovestibular physician in London, we've published on this already, on the outcome of a sample of 100 patients. And we're doing further research on it now. And actually, patients very much like it. And I see Polly was mentioning in her comments there about the environmental benefit. And that's something to think about, because patients aren't having to drive in. And for lots of us, we have busy lives. And for lots of our balance patients, particularly older balance patients, traveling is really horrid. So virtual consultations are a fantastic way forward. Zoom is a fantastic way forward. I can do lots of examinations online. I can do a Hall Pikes test. I've treated lateral canal and posterior canal BPPV by Zoom. So patients just hold their video camera to their eyes as they roll over on their bed. There's it's absolutely amazing what you can do, and it's the way forward. And then the other bit after that, we might talk about in the next section. So there have been absolute positives as well.
Wow, and I'm sure people have got questions, so please do keep them in. Even if you don't want to ask, you don't want to type the whole question in, put it in the chat box, just to say that you've got a question, and we will come to you at the end, Kevin, because we've got other things in between now, haven't we?
We have. Thanks, Rupert. Really great information we're getting from the panels. It's really good. We've got a quick annual summary on what we've been doing, but just want to quickly show you, and again, hopefully this all works, that can you now see a certain Andrew Clements receiving his award?
Got my Christmas tree there as well.
So there you go, the miracles of technology. And then also, just out of real interest, Andrew will confirm, I don't believe the man who did the delivery was in a car, Andrew, is that right?
No, he wasn't.
No, he was.
I think it was a bike, motorbike.
You can see that.
Oh, there it is.
The reason I'm showing you that gentleman there by the name of Marco was diagnosed with Meniere's many years ago. And I just want to give everyone a little bit of hope. He now is a sort of almost amateur pro cyclist, and decided to ride from Leicester to Andrew to deliver the present. So I say, none of us never give up, because the things will get better. And then one final photo, and who's that? It's a good job you weren't just wearing a top only for the Zoom meeting, Rupal.
It really is.
Right, really good. So now, again, hopefully you can see, can you see that okay, Rupal? Yeah. So it's just a really quick summary of what have we been doing, what have we been up to. The first section, this presentation will be downloadable from the website. So the first section is more for people who are not members yet, and balance may be new to them. Just, you know, those staggering numbers: 1 in 3 will experience something, 1 in 10 serious disorders. And we can all talk personally about how devastating it can be. The anxiety, the lack of confidence, you know, depression, all goes with it. Horrible, horrible things. But unless you experience it, not many people know that's happening. And what we do, again, this is not really intended for you guys. You know what we're about. You're all members. It's about generally supporting, but beyond that, improving, even if it's one person's life at a time, whatever we can do to make things better. Achievement, it's 20 months now since we started. Really proud to say 150 active members, which is fantastic, given that nobody, or not many people know we're out there. Not many people would Google search for a balance disorder search group, so that's always a problem, people knowing we're there, but we're working at it. As you've seen today, leading experts participating in the meetings, which is brilliant, bringing out lots of information around our balance world. We've now got members of the group from America, Australia, Holland, which is, I say, it's great, because we all share the same challenges wherever we live. Thanks to Kelly, we're up to 550 plus Facebook followers, which is brilliant. We work and try and coordinate with the balance charities, Many Airs Society and VIDA. And then I have to say, one of the biggest successes this year, probably COVID has helped that as well, the member-to-member contact network, where you can opt in and then talk, email or call directly to fellow members. Had so much good feedback about how comforting it is to talk to others that have got exactly the same challenges, changes to their lives that you have. And I note that we're still sticking with this. We've got no money, no bank account. So we don't have to focus on raising money, we just focus on doing what we do, supporting. And I have to say, the biggest thing for this year, much to my amazement, I thought it was really bad news when we had to stop the physical meetings, but Zoom really has stepped in and helped tremendously. And we now, one of the big pluses, anyone can join in from anywhere on the planet. So it's not just restricted to those that live in the Leicester, Leicestershire or Warwickshire area. And it still does. I'm really privileged. I get to see the feedback after each meeting, and I assure you, every meeting, it improves somebody's life somewhere in terms of giving them hope and optimism. So really good. That was it. That was the short summary of where we're at, and it's a big thank you really to all of you, because without you all, whether you are helping run it or being a member of it, it's the only reason we're here, that it works. So thanks to everyone for this year, and let's go on to do even more good next year. And I have to remind every one of the members, it may be about offering you support at the moment, but just by talking to other members, you in turn will be providing support to them. So we can all join in and help everyone. That's great. I think now it's still me, Ruth. Apologies about this. I seem to be hogging everything at the moment. We're going to part 2 of the coveted awards, which I will now try and get back to where we were. I must say, it's probably being a man doesn't help. I can only do one thing at once, and talking and operating the keyboard is proving very difficult for me at the moment. So just bear with me a second. I think we're here. Okay, coming now. And you should be able to see the screen there. Is that okay, Rufal? Can you see? Yeah, we're back on there. So end of part 1, we're now into part 2, which of course we have to have the accompanying. Super. Okay, and the next Dizzy Award is Outstanding Contribution to the Support Group for Voluntary Work. So, as I previously mentioned, nobody gets paid. We all do it because of our passion to do it, desire to help. It's very difficult to often fit in this work, especially when you've got a balanced condition, a busy life, really hard. And so it's even more special when somebody's prepared to put all that time in. And even though there might be shouts of fix again, I assure you, it's not, and it's very warranted, because it goes to Kelly. So well done, Kelly. May we have some words of acceptance after I've just explained to everyone. Sorry, applause first.
Thank you.
Daily posting, marvellous.
Yes.
That time.
Well, I just post stuff that I find interesting, and I think that other people find interesting. So I hope that you're all enjoying the content. You seem to be liking the countdown to Christmas at the minute, which is amazing. So yeah, so I'm just happy to bring everything I can to help everybody else.
That is, no, it's really good. And tell me, I mean, I'm sure it's true, because I find it the little things I do for the group, but there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into it, Kelly, isn't there? To actually plan those things is quite demanding.
Yeah, it takes several hours, especially the current one at the moment. It's like several hours on a weekend. I'm like scheduling all the posts and getting them all ready. So, you know, but I'm more than happy to do it. I love doing it. And, you know, if it benefits myself, it benefits everybody else, and it benefits the wider community, then, you know, it's all good, isn't it? It's worth the effort.
Thanks very much. So back now to, hopefully you can see the next award category. We're here to members' contribution. So it's a member this time, not a guest speaker or part of our organisation. But this award is quite special because it's going to a member. That member has no idea at all that this award's coming, and hopefully they're still on this Zoom. We're going to find out in a moment.
Yes,
so
they are.
The winner is, drum roll, the winner is Pauline Edge. Well done, Pauline.
Where's Pauline?
If you can just explain why Pauline, what she did for us.
So Pauline was involved in way back when, in April, when we did the lockdown series, the lockdown diary series on our social media. So she stepped up, shared us some diary entries. She introduced us to the honorary Life on the Level member that is known as Jack the dog, and the work that she did received some really positive feedback on Facebook. So I'm just really grateful that she was able to step up and get involved.
Now, where's Pauline to accept the award?
Thank you very much. I'm here.
Where's Jack?
He's at the window barking.
Oh, Oh, maybe there's somebody at the door.
Maybe there's an elf at your door calling.
Thank you so much. That was a complete shock.
Yeah, sorry about that, but thanks ever so much for doing
Yes,
it.
thank you.
Okay, no problem.
So good, so good. Right, I'm now gonna try and properly share the screen for the next award. So hopefully you can see that, everyone. And the next category is contribution to the balanced community by an external organisation. So that is looking outside of ourselves and just seeing who we think, you know, for example, Menier's Society and VIDA do so much for the balanced community, and I guess they both deserve awards. The judges this year, we looked at there was one event in particular that stood out and made it pretty obvious where the award should go. And the award this year goes to VIDA, our friends, cousins over in America. And the reason for that was the fabulous virtual webinar conference that happened during Balance Awareness Week. 5 different programs put together, of which we had the pleasure to work with Professor Rea to create a really good British version of that. What was very special about the whole webinar series, it involved both clinicians, the professionals, but also the balance sufferers. But it demonstrated how we've all got so much in common around the world, and it's such a diverse and difficult area with so many different types of conditions, disorders, symptoms, and even when we're diagnosed with the same symptoms, with same illness, you can have different varying symptoms. Now, VIDA's West Coast America, which is some 8 hours behind us, and strangely, the executive director, Cynthia Ryan, turned down the chance of a live appearance at 4 AM her time. So what we did instead was pre-recorded a little message, which I'm just going to play to you. So this is from Cynthia Ryan, executive director of VIDA.
Thanks so much to Kevin and to all of you at Lifetime Level for this recognition of the Dizzy Award. On behalf of everyone at VIDA, I want to say it means so much to us to know how what we are doing is impacting people like you all around the world. VIDA's goal has always been to educate vestibular patients about what's going on for them so that they can be better advocates for their own health, to connect them with vestibular healthcare providers so that they can get diagnosed more quickly, and also to bring them together in a community of support so they don't feel alone, but that they feel supported and validated in this experience, which we all know is very isolating and not well recognized both by the general public, by the medical community, and often by our friends and family. So I'm just so happy that we have you as part of our UK community to help us raise awareness about vestibular disorders, and hopefully in 2020 continue doing this, bring more people into the fold, help those people who are still out there, who still have not recognized that what's going on for them, that this weird feeling that they're having has a name, that it's vestibular related, and that there's something to do for it. So thank you again. Please keep sharing via social media posts.
Who's talking?
Cynthia Ryan, another award.
People that you meet.
Continue. No, I'm just getting trying to get the thing in your direction.
Brilliant, that's good. Apologies about the sound effects we keep getting. So well done to VIDA for that one. Then we come to what is the final award for this year. This one is probably the most special. I'll just check now. Hopefully you can see the next award screen. Outstanding Member of the Year. So that, if you think what we're really about is always the members. So it's brilliant to find one in particular that has really embraced everything that we are about being a support group, and has just done so much beyond themselves to try and help others. And again, this will be a complete surprise and maybe shock to the recipient, but the winner 2020 Dizzy Award Outstanding Member of the Year is Ella Samples. So well done, Ella. Why Ella? What has she done to deserve this accolade? I, especially when she joined the group, and a positive energy was obvious from day one. Despite having her own challenges with a balanced condition, she's been very busy contacting and supporting other members. She's been very busy just trying to embrace everything we do, learn as much as she can, listen to these expert presentations, and it's just been a real pleasure and privilege to have Ella on as a member. And now, Ella, hopefully before the elf arrives to you,
unmute yourself, Ella.
We can have a few words from you. Are you
still
there,
on mute,
Ella?
Ella?
Ella, switch mute off. There she is. Ella, can you hear us?
I think she's trying desperately to find. She's looking for the unmute button. Hope it's there somewhere. We might get some words from her very shortly.
Yes.
Hopefully.
While she's looking, Ella, by the way, lives Northampton way, so the elves have got a extra special journey to make. That Ella, we can hear you. Hopefully, congratulations.
Yes,
we can hear you.
I was going to say, Kevin, I will have to tell you a little story, because I think our balance conditions are so hidden. People don't know what they're about at all. And I have many examples of getting out there and finding a crazy situation. For example, I went to have my flu jab, and this is recent. I've got many others. Perhaps Kelly, I'll try and write a few of them down and send them to you.
Oh, yes, please.
Because the one recently, I went down to have my flu jab, went to the community centre, and I've got the PPPP condition, as well as I started off with Meniere's assessment, and now it's PPP, well, D. And I went down, my husband came with me, and I suddenly realised there was a big car park with loads of cars. So of course my visual side was overloaded. So my husband sort of came round, and I got out of the car, and there were crowds of people as well. And it was all a bit overwhelming, you know, the visual side. So of course, what did I do? I tripped over a curb. And most of the people there were little dears, you know, and they were sort of very excited to see this event of this person tripping over. So someone shouted, "Go and fetch a doctor, go and fetch a doctor." So out came my doctor, who's called Dr. Srini. He's 5'0". He was in bright blue, and he said, "Oh, Ella, what's wrong with you?" And I said, "Oh, Dr. Srini, I've got PPPD." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "It's a vestibular condition." "Oh," said Dr. Srini, "what's that?" And it just tells you that people do not know what it's all about. And so then the next thing that happened, which has happened to me before, someone came up and said, "Well, are you drunk?" And I said, no, I'm not drunk. And then I said, my husband said, don't tell people what you've got, because if you tell them what you've got, they'll think you're crazy. And I said, well, I'm going to tell people what I've got, and I'm not going to be shy or not tell people what I've got. And I think that's one of my contributions, in that when I'm out there in the community, I have situations where people don't understand, and I refuse to, you know, to not talk about it and explain what it is. And gradually people are learning a little bit more about the condition, and that the people who have it are not crazy. I hope I don't present myself as a bit crazy, but certainly my contribution is being able to let people know about it, and let people know there are many people with this condition and how it affects them.
That's brilliant.
And because,
That's
I mean,
brilliant,
I
Ella.
also, yes, I went to my local church recently, and I went in and I seemed okay, and then I couldn't walk out. So I had these people coming to help me walk out, and they said, Ella, what is it? What is wrong with you? So again, it's being able to sort of talk about it, being able to tell people what it is, and that the people who've got it are not crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And the
Ella, I
more
think, you know, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's really important that people like you actually talk about it. And, you know, I think perhaps in future meetings we could get you to be one of our speakers on one of the meetings, and maybe talk about it in a bit more detail. Thank you in the meantime. If you could put yourself back on mute, that would be fantastic. Kevin, I'm going to, I think we'll move on now to the final part of the panel, and that is looking at the future. So we have Andrew Hugill, Michaela, Andrew, the other Andrew Clements, and Peter Rea. Peter, if we could then come to you, looking ahead to the future, and remembering we've all got a very short space of time now, I think. Just looking ahead to the future, what is it that kind of excites you in terms of developments? I know you did kind of touch on them a little earlier, but to help people's lives, make them better as far as balance is concerned.
Yeah, I think the first thing, and one of the most important things, is what we're doing today. And that's raising awareness, because it historically has always been a Cinderella speciality. And there were very few balance centres. So during my career, I worked with the Department of Health and lots of other centres, trying to promote each region having a balance R or a balance lead, so that balance centres are available for everyone around the UK. So that's the first thing, to actually get access to train the doctors in balance medicine, because for many doctors it's frightening, and if doctors don't understand things, and you've heard a very nice story there about that, then when people don't understand things, they recoil from it and they get frustrated, and then that frustration is reflected, the patient can sense that reflection, that frustration. So we train, Andrew, Michaela and I all together in the Leicester Balance course. So we've trained about 500 or 600 people over the last decade or so in balance. So we're trying to send the message out. So that's a really important thing, to actually get the structure in place. So pragmatic things are important. I think that the numbers are really important as well. So you've heard Kevin talking about the huge numbers. If we look at vestibular vertigo, i.e. ear-related vertigo, about 5% of the population will experience that a year. So Leicestershire has a population of 1 million. It's 50,000 people a year who get ear-related vertigo per year. At Leicester Royal Infirmary, historically, before the current lockdowns, we could see 7,000 new and follow-up combined. So you see, we can only see a tiny fraction. But so I think the big developments going forward are going to be the development of virtual consultations, artificial intelligence-led consultations, probably some non-medically led consultations. So we're trying to get, we have a BPPV clinic with our fancy chair we spin people around on, that will do the diagnostics, and we can then let our scientists and therapists do a lot of the treatment to try and free us up as medics. So we're trying to change the way we do things. So I think that's actually probably the most important thing. And then, of course, a lot of what interests me also is the science behind it. And that's where all our research comes from. So we have all this huge funding now for post-head injury, for triple PD, persistent postural perceptual dizziness, and for vestibular migraine in Leicester. And we're rolling out lots of really big research programs on this, and we're really sort of concentrating on that. We've got developments for Meniere's disease, and our understanding, I think the next frontier in medicine, balanced medicine, is understanding what goes on in the conscious part of the brain. So we've got a pretty good idea in the ear, a pretty good idea on its connections to the center of the brain. But where our research now is where that neuronal information, those electrical impulses, are changed into your conscious awareness of balance, what you experience, that rocking sensation if you're at the MDDS side of one spectrum, and the emotion-induced dizziness if you're at the PPPD end of the spectrum. You can look at it however you like, but this is a central processing disorder, and we need to understand and characterize the neuronal abnormalities here, and then target treatment on that. So that's sort of where I want to go with a lot of the research in the coming years.
Brilliant, thank you, Peter. Andrew, Clements? I've got you on, I think you're on mute, Andrew.
So it's always hard following Peter, but I would agree with most of those things, but applying it more to the actual treatment, to look at how we can actually do treatment remotely. So whether that's on video and how we can set the office up so we can treat people by video, but also I think an area we'll be moving into is using virtual reality and then using that in a treatment mode. I mean, we've got equipment at the Royal at the moment that can put people into virtual reality in a well, it makes people feel really horrible, and there's no point in doing that because people wouldn't do that as a repeated exercise. So we've got to find a way where we can use something like that and then introduce it so people can do it at home. So it's got to be transferable to look at treatment programs because they've got to be done repetitively at home. So it's no good if you have to come into the Royal to have that treatment because one, getting in, two, the hassles and the waiting. So it's looking forward to the changes with the equipment we've got and how we can transfer that into making it a treatment for people that they can do it at home.
Brilliant, thank you. Michaela?
I think we're going to hopefully make a lot of progress with regards to sort of getting the word out there to the medical community and improving diagnosis and recognition of balance problems and the associated difficulties with them. Hopefully also with increasing understanding and support from sort of partners, family members, friends, and workplaces as well. I think it's very important that workplaces are brought up to sort of up to speed and understanding with hidden disabilities and the associated extra difficulties that when people aren't supported and their stress is increased by the lack of support, the impact that actually then has on the physical symptoms. So I think we're going to hopefully make a lot more progress in sort of the mental health side of things in a much wider community than just the sufferer and their immediate family.
I look forward to that, and I think all of us will on that front. Andrew Hugill, you know, I know you sort of use and are very good with technology as well and gadgets that will help people improve their lives. And you certainly use a lot of stuff that helps you work efficiently and carry on working. In terms of that side of things, do you think that there's going to be more available to help people who, you know, are sufferers of various balance conditions?
Definitely, and this is where I can make more of a contribution than being a patient, you know, professionally. I think the big development is artificial intelligence, which has been mentioned a few times. I mean, there are obviously things to do with things like VR as well, which we can use for therapy and so on. But it seems to me that the challenges at the moment are that there's massive demand and not enough supply in terms of treatments. And I mean, we've seen Peter's referred to you know, the wait times for diagnosis even. Then there's the problem of the accuracy of the diagnosis. You know, that there's a lot of these conditions have very similar symptoms, and so it's quite hard to get an accurate diagnosis. And then there's the additional problem that there's so much research now going on in this, which is great, of course, that no human being can possibly read all this research. I mean, it's impossible to keep up with it. So this is where AI comes in. So I think AI can really help with diagnosis and can help with treatment as well. Being able to, for example, read all the current research, have a machine read it, to train the artificial intelligence on images, on medical information, to be able to get towards some kind of assistant for GPs, and then also to be able to help patients, perhaps using social media, to their mobile phones, as we've already heard, you can use a mobile phone in real time. Because I mean, one of the problems is, as a patient, if you're having an attack, the last place you want to be is in Peter Rea's clinic. You want to be at home, and so Peter can't actually observe you having the attack. But if I've got a mobile phone, I can actually, hold it up to my eyes, and he can look and see the ways my eyes are moving, and can tell me, that's what's going on. And now you think, hang on, we don't even need Peter to do that, because actually an AI can do that. It's mathematical the way your eyes move. It's total. You can measure it, and you can track it, and with 100% accuracy. So I think this is the future, really, is AI assisting humans to make better diagnoses and treatments.
Yeah, Peter's nodding away frantically there, Peter Rea. You need to unmute yourself, Peter.
Sorry, to be so enthusiastic at what you were saying. And just to add something, and of course I agree with every word Andrew says there, but the phone thing is something I use a lot with my patients, and if you've seen me, you'll know that that's really helpful for episodic vertigo. And one of the research projects that I'm doing with the team, with Louisa Murden, who one or two of you have mentioned in your things, your messages, and John Phillips in Norwich, is John's developed something called the Carver, which is a head-worn device. It's the equivalent of a 24-hour ECG, but it looks like something from Star Trek. And what it does is it records your eye movements, and it's just such a fantastic invention. And we're going to be recruiting for that in Leicester, Norwich, and London over the next year. And the idea is, if you get these episodes of vertigo, we don't know whether it's BPPV or migraine or Meniere's or episodic ataxia type 2 or whatever the cause is, it will record your eye movements during the attack. And then, as Andrew says, we can use computer algorithms, self-learning algorithms, which is then AI, sort of machine learning, to diagnose based upon the eye movements the nature of the underlying balance disorder, and then treat it. And then what Andrew and I would see the future as is we can then incorporate that data into the big data AI that we're developing, hopefully, he says. And then you've got a diagnostic system from talk, maybe even getting a chatbot. You can talk to the computer, fill in paperwork and so on. And then the electrical test you can add into it. And then we're really going further into the 21st century in balanced diagnostics. And that's incredibly powerful and exciting.
Could you just tell us, I think we just had a message saying, what's the name of that head thing that you were just...
CAVA. So it's basically an ambulatory vestibular recorder, Carver, CAVA. There are some, if you Google Carver, CAVA, and if you put in John Phillips, he's got the patent on it. I wasn't on the original paper. I have no commercial links with it at all. And he's the brains behind it. So if you put Carver and Phillips, you'll find the details in the scientific paper, and that's available. And then what I've done with Louisa, who I say is one of the gang, if you like, and there's 2 or 3 of us who are incredibly enthusiastic in the UK trying to take this all forward. We're going to be recruiting patients into this study over the coming year. We've got, I think we've just about got approvals. We've also got approvals for the Meniere's registry. Everyone who's got Meniere's disease, I'll be in touch with you, and we'd really like you. So we've got lots of big research approvals again, responding to
and no doubt you're all going to keep in touch with us, and the Balance Group. Andrew, particularly on the sort of technology side as well, because I think it's just making a massive difference in people's lives. Everybody, Kelly, should we crack on then, because we are sort of overrunning a little. If we could just do maybe 5-10 minutes tops of a Q&A with the panel. Kelly, you've been keeping across the questions.
I know, I've been all over the questions while everyone's been chatting, but Peter has been on it and he's been answering them all in the chat. So I think there's not that many that are outstanding. I would go to check with Sandra though, because there might be one from her still.
Sandra, can you hear us? Do you want to ask your question? No, Sandra Black? Yeah? Sandra, you're still on mute. If you could just unmute yourself. And if there are any questions that you'd like to get in while Sandra is looking for her unmute button, please get it in the chat box as soon as possible.
Rupal, while we just wait for Sandra to do that, if I could just share with you one thing that's in. I don't know if you can. Sorry, let me just get that right again. Can you see that photograph?
Yep. No.
No?
Oh yes, here we go.
That's again, sorry, it's not, yes, that's just so everyone can get a look at a real life on the level elf.
Brilliant.
Nice photo. Sorry, Rupal, back to you.
That's okay. Sandra, I think, has found the unmute button. Yes, go for it, Sandra. Keep it brief if possible.
Yes, it was just, I see Louisa Murden here in London, and I think you've perhaps answered some of this, but I'm really interested in this Carver thing that you're talking about. I'm just wondering how soon that might be available for people here in London to try it out, like me, for instance.
No, you should be in it. There's two big projects that Louisa and I are doing together. I mean, Louisa and I do a lot. We're really good friends, and I think the world of her. She's
yes,
fantastic.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah, and quite rightly too. She's also very empathetic and just a very lovely person. So I mean, she's got a good background in migraine. She's a physician. This is the difference. She's an audiovestibular physician, so a non-surgeon, whereas I'm an ENT surgeon. So we actually complement each other very well because we come in with different backgrounds. And the two studies we're doing together, the Meniere's registry, and those of you who've got Meniere's who I see, hopefully I'll be writing to you, we're trying to get all of our patients with Meniere's. We'll hopefully be given permission to collect the science data. Then our patients will fill in lots and lots of paperwork, and we want to see how your symptoms evolve over a number of years, so we can answer questions like, how likely am I to get Meniere's on the other side, doctor, that sort of thing. And then the vestibular migraine is, of course, a huge issue. We all know that 10 to 15% of the population get migraine. 10% of migraine attacks are vestibular. Therefore, 1% of the population get vestibular migraine, which is the same as BPPV. That's a lot of people, isn't it? You know, you've got what, how many? 6 million people in London? That's 60,000 people in London with vestibular migraines. It's an awful lot of people. The answer to your question is, the Carver, we put in an application for a multi-million-pound research grant. These are fantastically expensive to run these projects, and we didn't get that. In research, we normally expect to get about 1 in 7 grant applications. It's tough, and it can take a year of sweat and blood to put these together. You know, we don't have any, well, I certainly don't have any financial input into any of the things that I do. Mine are all just done in my own time. And I've just had a whole bunch of stuff come through on Carver again. And we've changed the nature of the application, so it's less demanding and it's a much lower cost application this time. It'll be in hundreds of thousands of pounds rather than millions of pounds. And I would be really disappointed if we're not up and running this year. And if you're getting vestibular migraine, not migraine associated balance disorder, so if you're getting vertigo attacks associated with migraine, Louisa will be very, very likely to be in touch with you. And we only need relatively small numbers. For the Meniere's registry, there are 4 of us doing this, and we each want 100 patients. That's quite a big ask. It's a huge amount of work. And it's actually, I'm taking out sort of half a day a week of my life to do that. And then the Carver, we're getting a lot fewer patients. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But yeah.
I didn't understand the distinction you made between vestibular migraine and something else.
Migraine associated balance disorder. That's a really good question, because anyone who sees me with migraine knows my normal spiel, and that's migraineurs are advanced human beings, because migraine probably has an evolutionary advantage. There's a reason that 10 or 15% of us have got migraine. And in that blissful historic past that Andrew alluded to, when the world was full of milk and honey, and there were only about 20 people living in the UK, and it was nice and peaceful. Migraine was a great thing to have because you could probably sense the change of weather patterns, animal movements, crop movements, because migraineurs are much more sensitive to outside stimuli. We all know that as migraineurs because we can't stand light or sound or daily hassles and all those things. The problem is in the modern world, those triggers are much more unpleasant. And that's why when you have a balance problem, migraineurs, who make up 40% of my clinic in the balance clinic, are much more effective because migraineurs weight balance stimuli much more powerfully. And it's a big issue. I know we haven't got much time, Rupal, but the big thing, yeah, sorry, the big thing we're thinking about here is if you imagine, again, go back to Andrew's AI, if you're developing an artificial intelligence system, you will weight different information on your AI system differently. So if you get spinning vertigo, you might give it a 10 out of 10 of importance. If you get a tingle in your left little finger, you might give it a 0 importance on your AI. The problem when you have migraine or triple PD, or quite possibly MDDS, I know less about MDDS because it's a less common condition, but with these conditions, your brain is putting a much higher weighting on the sensory stimuli that are coming into you from your eyes, from your ears, from your body. And therefore, balanced stimuli are much more distressing. So this gives you a chronic background sensitivity to motion, to balance, and you have chronic imbalance. You don't like motion around you, or you don't like internal motion. And then the second bit is vestibular migraine, whereas migraine attacks can cause headaches, they can cause pain in your knee, they can cause tummy pain, they can cause torticollis, a twisted neck, and they can cause spinning vertigo. It depends which bit of the brain is affected by the migraine. So you have vestibular migraine causing spinning, and you have the chronic balance symptoms that migraineurs experience. Was that helpful?
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much. Kenny, are there any other questions?
I'm not seeing anyone with hands up. We've just had some
we've got
on the chat.
I think we've got Kath. Sorry, go on.
As I say, just one come from the chat that says, can you have BPPV and Meniere's?
Shall I take that one? Yeah, that's a really good question. And the answer is absolutely you can. BPPV is caused by anything that can damage the inner ear. Head injury, getting older, osteoporosis, all these things, vitamin D deficiency. But 20% of my patients with Meniere's have BPPV. So 1% of the population overall have BPPV, but 20% of my Meniere's patients have BPPV, and 40% of my Meniere's patients have migraine as well. So there's lots of different things going on. So it's very, very common to get both. And of course, now, if you're a Meniere's patient, and you're 20% with BPPV, 40% with migraine, 100% with vestibulopathy, a bit of imbalance, and 100% with some emotional reaction to it because you're not a robot, you're a human being. You've got 5 different conditions there, haven't you? And they all need picking apart. And then that's why doctors, I think, who aren't experienced in these things start to really struggle, and diagnoses are missed, perhaps.
Peter, thank you. We've got to say goodbye to Andrew Clements because he's got to disappear. Is it lunchtime now, Andrew?
No, Kevin told me an hour.
Never believe him. Never
I
believe
know that. I mean,
I've
got visitors. I'm just typing that. I've got visitors coming. So I've got muted because I've got the dog barking.
Can I just start really quickly before you go? Can I ask Catherine C, is your question for Andrew Clements, Catherine C, or is it for another member of the panel?
I think it's more for Peter.
Great. Okay, Andrew, you can go. Thanks so
Andrew,
much.
thanks so much. Merry Christmas to you. And
Thank you. Thank you for
see you next year.
Yeah.
Thank
you. See you then.
Cheers.
Take care, Andrew.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Catherine, in the meantime, ask your question quickly, please, to the rest of the panel.
Thank you all very much. There isn't anybody here in New Jersey that has what I have. No friends, no nothing. So it's been very isolative, and I was so grateful to find this group and Kevin, who spent so much time with me on the phone. April 4th, I had a BPPV really bad. I was so sick the whole weekend. Then it took until June 26th to get diagnosed with labyrinthitis by an ENT, and I had 10% hearing loss in my left ear. And on November 4th, I was diagnosed with vestibular migraine by a neuro-otologist and put on supplements, a diet, and now I'm starting a tricyclic, nortriptyline, to help. And anytime I start to just go walking, just a little exercise, God forbid, or I don't get enough sleep, it's like I just feel like it's going to start all over again. Like I start feeling nauseous again. I start feeling not well. And last time I was on this thing, they said, you got to push through, you got to walk, you got to exercise. And anytime I go to walk a mile, you know, like then I feel like I'm going to get sick. So I end up stopping. So I'm all confused about what do I have? I went from one thing to another thing to another thing. And I'm doing my best with this. I work from home, I'm lucky.
Catherine, thank you. Yeah, you know, it's difficult to, I guess, sort of answer specific questions, but Peter, is there any kind of advice?
But I think also it's a really helpful example of why people struggle. Now, BPPV is much commoner in migraineurs as well. And you've described this vestibulopathy, this weakness of balance function. I'm just going to make an assumption you've had all the proper tests, scans, and all the rest of it to exclude other causes. But the problem is, if you have a chronic balance disorder, as most people do in this group, and you have an episodic balance disorder as well, then that destabilizes your chronic balance disorder. So you have to have the BPPV aggressively treated before you start your vestibular physiotherapy. So lots of treatment for BPPV, Eplers, CMONs, Brandt-Darragh exercises, whatever it is, taking vitamin D. And also, as your team are doing, aggressive migraine treatment. Make sure you're sleeping well, not skipping meals, having 2 liters of water a day, not having caffeine and all the other migraine treatments. Nortriptyline is a good example of a drug you can use. There are many, many other drugs that you can use as well to stabilize the migraine. And then the question is, what have you got? Well, you may have BPPV plus migraine and a migraine-associated balance disorder, or you may have BPPV plus migraine and vestibulopathy, so weakness of balance function. And this is a theme you're seeing is coming through in my replies, that you can treat someone with dizziness as a dizzy patient and give them generic treatment. And that's what we often do in the very elderly who are at risk of falling. Or you can treat you as an individual who has several different conditions that need isolating and treating individually. And that's always my recommendation. Treat the BPPV, get the migraine controlled, get Andrew or Michaela onto treating the vestibulopathy and do that individually rather than as a group. And then what you're experiencing is all the consequences of that, which can lead into triple PD, persistent postural perceptual dizziness, as a chronic balance disorder.
Thank you, Peter. And I think we'll leave the questions there for now, but no doubt we'll have Peter again join us, as well as the rest of the panel in the new year, Kevin, because I know we've got a few more things to get through before we all say goodbye, and we have overrun as usual. Kevin.
As usual, but that's, if we just say a tremendous thank you to the panel. I know Andrew's gone, but other three of that, it's been really, really useful today. Is the thing I would say is not only you helping us at the moment, but when we put this video out on YouTube, Facebook, and our website, so many thousands of people can watch this and gain information from it. The biggest thing, which I'm sure you all know on the panel that you give us, is hope. Hope that we are going to be getting better. We will get a better quality of life. And this that we go through at the moment is not permanent. So thanks again to all of you for a brilliant day's work. And we hope you'll join us again next year, where we go together to do more. So thanks very much. And applause from me and anyone else who can unmute.
Well done, Kevin.
Thank you very much, panel. Well done.